Welcome back to Jeff Randall Live. Now, across the Atlantic, there's a long and distinguished list of world-beating companies that began as bright ideas in a university lab or lecture room. Here in Britain, it's not quite the same. One company that's doing its best to bridge the gap between business and education is Imperial Innovations. Its aim is to get in early to help good academic ideas become booming businesses. It has just raised £140 million of additional investment to apply the expertise gained at Imperial College London to the UK's other top research institutions, Oxford, Cambridge and University College London, UCL. Some of its successes include the development of Ceres Power, a company specialising in fuel cell technology. It was sold in 2005 for close to £5 million. In 2008, the sale of the obesity treatment Thiakis raised up to £100 million. While last summer, the lung disease treatment Respivert generated cash of more than £9 million.
The task of getting all these brilliant ideas we have in the universities into some kind of commercial exploitation is a huge one, and it's a kind of game that Britain has traditionally not been very good at playing, but we have got much better at it. The picture at the moment is quite patchy, and you can point to certain hotspots. So you can look at Cambridge, and that is developing a fantastic track record. You can look at Oxford, also very strong. And the third place where it could happen in a really big way is London.
Now, the chairman of Imperial Innovations, Martin Knight, joins me here at the Gherkin. He's a former investment banker who was also chief financial officer at Imperial College. Martin, nice to see you. Thanks for coming in. Now, going all the way back to Sir Clive Sinclair, here in Britain, we seem to be pretty good at coming up with clever ideas, but not very good at turning them into money-making businesses. Why is that?
Well, I think it's because we underfund the early stage opportunities. Early stage opportunities need three things. They need great ideas, great management and adequate capital. And I think historically in this country we've funded early stage companies with too little capital. So we've got inadequate management which produces underperformance, and therefore it's very difficult to raise further capital.
I'm glad you mentioned management, because it strikes me that it's perfectly possible that you can be a brilliant egghead, an inventor, but why should you be a good manager?
Well, no, they frequently aren't, and sometimes they are.
So how is it that in the States they seem to apply management on top of good ideas? Well, where do they get it from?
I think what happens is they get the capital, and because they get adequate capital, that attracts in experienced management. I mean, experienced management that's been around the world, worked in big companies, understands how to run a business. Why would they give up their careers for a company that's very flakily capitalised? So you've got to get the capital in to get the good management. The good management then works with the capital and the ideas successfully.
Talking about management, what I don't understand is this. At Oxford and at Cambridge and at Imperial, they've all got top-notch business schools. Why don't they just merge the business schools with the research eggheads and bingo?
Well, the business schools are not necessarily businessmen. They're academics who study business, whereas what we're looking for is people with management experience, the ability to make money, to make profits, to produce products that the market wants. Those are different skills from running a business school.
So give us a flavour of some of the most exciting ideas you've heard recently.
Well, I haven't had the ideas. It's the academics that have had the ideas.
Recently.
Yeah, the academics, I mean, they produce wonderful ideas, and there's a very good example of an extremely exciting idea, which is in a company called Nexion. It's one of our great hopes, and it's in the battery space, storage of power in batteries. Now, we all know that battery storage is a big problem in laptops, in mobile phones, and so finding a way of being able to store power more effectively, more efficiently. So either you can have a smaller battery, or you can have longer life with existing battery size. That's quite a challenge, and there's not much development that's taken place in the battery space for some considerable period. And we have a company called Nexion that's very successfully working in this space.
I'm sure watching this programme many academics will say, oh, jolly good, some money out there. I shall call up that Mr. Knight and test his mettle. How do you go about picking winners? Because it seems to me that in the early phase lots of brilliant ideas are bound to seem a bit cranky.
Yes, and you just have to accept that you're going to put some bread on the water and some of it's not going to come back to you. So I think there is an understandable view that not all of the ideas that you back are going to be winners. You have to accept that.
So is there a high attrition rate?
Historically there has been, but what we do in Imperial Innovations is to do a lot of screening and a lot of pre-founding work to make sure that the companies that we back have got a good chance.
So typically,
actually we have quite a low attrition rate.
Typically, how much do you put in, and what do you ask for in return? I'm assuming that you want a slug of the business.
Well, in the context of Imperial College, when we form a company, broadly speaking, Innovations gets 50% of it, and then the academic community gets 50%. And then the funding comes in, and depending upon how much money is needed, there's a dilution. There's no golden rule that says you put in this amount to begin with and then there's this bit and that
But
bit.
I suppose I'm being slightly sceptical here, but that word dilution, that could mean anything. You could take 5%, you could take 95%.
Yeah.
What do you typically take?
Well, I don't think there is a typical. I think that one of the charms of this industry and this activity is that there are really very few golden rules. It really does depend. Some businesses we set up need very little capital. Others of them need very substantial amounts of capital. So there just isn't a golden rule.
And briefly, we're running out of time. Do we have the next Mark Zuckerberg sitting out there somewhere in a British university?
Well, Mark Zuckerberg's not only a very creative man, he's also obviously an extremely fine businessman, like Bill Gates was. So, yes, I'm sure we do have. What we have to do is to make sure he's got adequate capital to back him.
Exactly. And you
Very good.
should put the money in. Very nice indeed, Mr.
Thank you
Knight.
very
Thanks
much.
for coming in.
Not at all.